Hey, what's going on out there, guys? Got another great show lined up for you today from BALLBUSTERS. If you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. BALLBUSTERS, assemble! What's going on out there, guys?
Hey, welcome to BALLBUSTERS.
Evening, everyone.
Adam.
Hello.
Hey, Adam's on time. Chocolate's out. You guys feeling all right?
Just fashionably just on time, mate. I was nearly late, but yeah.
You guys throw
Good to
me
be
off,
here.
man. It's not going to work. Shout out to Bouncing Betty, the beautiful one. Had a birthday bash today. We'll miss her, but I'm sure she'll tune in here and there.
The bouncing one, the beautiful Betty at a birthday bash. That was pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. Bouncing Betty. You guys know what a Bouncing Betty is, right?
I don't know what a bouncing Betty is, but I'm absolutely certain she'll love being referred to as Bouncing Betty.
You think? That's what I thought. I thought they were cool.
Please qualify it with something that at least redeems you a little bit, QE.
I don't think I can. If I tell you what a Bouncing Betty is, I'm going to get down the tubes.
Is it a dam buster or something?
Is it a what?
Dam buster.
Nah, it's a landmine.
I was close. Explosives, though, right?
Yeah. So what it does, right? If you step on it, it doesn't go off, right? It's got a spring inside it, and what happens is when you take your foot off it, that thing flies up, about 4 or 5 feet high, and then explodes.
Yeah, like in The Rock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm
I'd just
sure.
like to disassociate myself with that analogy, if possible, just for therapy.
Took the words out of my mouth, Adam. Exactly. I'm sure Betty will love to be referred to as an explosion that has a delayed fuse and blows half your body apart.
Well, thanks.
It might be applicable when she gets hold of you.
Well, thanks for dropping anchor here and stressing it and going right into detail with everything. Appreciate that. Yeah. What's happening out there in Flatland?
Well, I suppose the recent event when I was last that was Sleeping Warrior. It was him, you, and I that kind of made that event happen. And you covered it with an old show about gravity that you did with Cathexis, which was on, I believe, Tuesday. But since the last Ballbusters, we collectively have drawn a line in the sand and said, no more 105-year out-of-date mass attracting mass. No. 105 years is plenty of time.
I haven't heard anyone talk about it, except I think a couple newbies, just complete new people. So I wasn't too harsh on them, but any old timers out there, I hear, they ain't even saying anything. They know better now. The word's out. There'll be a friggin' jailbreak on you. Tonight there's going to be trouble, baby.
They're not saying much about much because there's no argument. Their globe is dead.
Well,
Yeah.
while they appeal into frigonometry.
Trigonometry, baby.
It's an inside joke, guys. We were on a panel a couple of days. Was it yesterday?
Last night, wasn't it, John?
Was it last night? Were you?
Yeah.
You were. Oh, Adam was there too. That's too
A
funny.
non-Euclidean frig.
Frigonometry with the Cavender experiment.
Having their experiment, and somebody else was talking about tangential velocity.
Oh, tangential! I couldn't believe it. This is. We're under a circus tent, guys. I forgot all about that.
We
Thanks,
are.
chocolate. Yeah. Tangential. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to link it back to the thing we were talking about before, actually. So carry on with tangential velocity versus angular momentum if you want to.
Yeah, it was angular velocity versus tangential speed. He came on, I think he was listening to the show, I think it was on 24/7, and he decided to come in like Mr. Helper and wanted to set us straight. So he just fell into the same, trap of confusing angular velocity and tangential speed. But he called it, I guess he thought I said pangential. So he started talking about tangential. I said, "What did you say?" He said tangential speed. I said, "Oh no, here we go." So it took about 30 minutes. He kept on. They just keep repeating the same thing. It's not like they don't listen. I mean, it's easy to tell the difference between angular velocity and tangential speed. If you're talking about speed or how fast something's going, you don't refer to it in angular. As soon as angular comes out of your mouth, like I've said before, you should already know it has nothing to do with speed. It's angular. So it's going to be, the units are going to be in radians, right? Angular. But they're so Dunning-Kruger, they're pretender clowns right off the bat when they confuse the two. They've never been around the subject. They're just parroting something that they were told, probably from Fight the Tight Shirt, where I train wrecked him with that nonsense. But the first one who started that disaster, I think, was Gem Panda back in the day, right? He just couldn't get his mind around the difference between angular velocity and tangential speed, right? Revolutions per minute against distance per unit time. Like cops don't pull you over for going over the revolution limit or RPM limit. It's really ridiculous out here, man. It seems like that we're regressing. Not we're regressing, but the baltards are regressing, and we have to go back over these are just elementary fundamental arguments from 2015.
It just seems like another diversionary tactic that they use, because they don't want to talk about tangential speed. Because if they talk about tangential speed, then they have to talk about why we don't measure it, why we don't feel it, all these other things. Although they can easily talk about angular velocity, because then they just point to the sky and say, "Oh, these things are rotating at a certain rate, or revolution. It goes around 1 revolution a day." They can focus on that. But when we talk about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, nah. That's when we don't want to talk about that. It doesn't matter. I think he said at one point, doesn't even matter how fast it's going. It rotates at 15 degrees an hour.
Yep.
What,
What did he say? It was something to the effect that, when you're driving in a car and you're looking at a mountain in a distance and you're driving, you're moving, but the mountain stays the same, but it looks like it's moving. And I said,
do you know if it's you're moving or the mountain?
I was like,
bro.
Oh my goodness, sir. So therefore the earth is spinning, right? That makes no sense. But I don't know, dude. I had to leave.
Yeah, I know.
That's been happening a lot lately, by the way.
He progressed from that, John, to point out that an R value wasn't relevant if you were trying to do trigonometry to triangulate stars. The size of the R value was of no significance, even though it's the fundamental thing that you use to avert your measurement to place them on the assumed sphere.
That's always my favorite part, Adam, is when they say, the radius. We don't need that radius. That's irrelevant. What? Don't you think you live on a ball? Where do you think that comes from?
We just like to forget about this R thing that we clung to so dearly. You just move on and leave the
There
R
they go,
alone.
throwing their R all under the bus, right? They used to say the body of science proves R. Right? Now R? Nah, that's irrelevant. At
dirty
best,
uncle in the corner
you've just
now.
disproven, the R value. At best, that's all you've done. Ridiculous.
what was the next one? It was radar, right? The over the horizon radar, and the radar's horizon. And then I'm listening for 20 minutes. I was doing something else. I'm listening. I'm waiting for a claim to come. He talked for like 20 minutes, and I said, okay, what's your claim? Nothing. It was silent. I said, okay, come on, let's get to it. Nope. I don't know what these people are thinking, man. I really don't.
They're not thinking.
That's the problem. They think they just throw something out there, and it's like, I don't know. Do you want us to carry your argument on for you? So I did. I finally got fed up with listening to it and said, okay, let's end this. All right. So I don't know, man. Like I said, it's Carnival 10 out there. And speaking of which, that's right. Level is curved. See, when you have to explain to grown adults that level isn't curved, then everything, all bets are off. I mean, why go into anything more other than, maybe how's the weather where you're at? Even then, I'm questioning whether you're going to give me something, factual. Word.
Level means level. When I'm doing a floor and we level a floor, we level it. Don't curve it.
You just don't understand. Your floors are curved. You're actually proving curvature every time you level a floor.
Now listen, there are some times when they don't want it leveled, they don't want to spend the money, and we smooth it out so it's still a little bit wavy, but that's not level. That's smooth.
Not according to geodesists. I have been cornered and then cited by geodesist references that say a level isn't curved. So that must be true. Just change the definition, right? Change the definition to its antithesis and then roll with that.
Yeah, it's just semantics.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the problem we're having. My cousin, she's a teacher. She goes to definitions, and they all back this heliocentric bullshit.
Give us an example.
Coriolis says it's a force.
Oh, I'll tell you what, that Coriolis, that's why I usually stay away from that. Unless it's with a seasoned baller. Because I'll tell you what, because they can cite even the references that you pull up, they got it all wrong. Right?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it takes so long to go through that argument to fix everything. I know it's easy, but to explain what the Coriolis effect actually is, but to get through all the other contradictory nonsense, I could pull up 3 or 4 contradictory definitions of the Coriolis effect in like 2 minutes. Just hit Coriolis, just type Coriolis effect into any search engine, and you can pull it up from, I would say reputable sources. They don't have a clue. In fact, they contradict themselves within the very same article a number of times. That's been my experience. But like I said, I usually stay away from it.
This word force and then throw it after that. They just want to throw the word force all over the place.
Oh,
so they have a Coriolis force.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
What are they calculating? A sight gag? That's all it is. That's what I call it. It's a sight gag, right?
Yeah, I call it an illusion.
Yeah.
Based off of their citation. They call it an illusion. Their side. So how the hell is an illusion causing anything?
Causing anything or an effect? Is an illusion an effect?
Apparently.
Apparently. No pun intended, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't catch it. See, yeah, I'm all over that. I'm sharp today, man.
All right.
And I thought Beckham had skill when you could bend it like Beckham. I didn't know it was the Coriolis the whole time.
Yeah, they really screwed the pooch on that one, especially Neil deGrasse, Smoking deGrasse. He really, he put it out there. He shouldn't have said nothing. He should have just remained silent. but they can't do it.
Have you heard about the new science, John, called fashion science?
Fashion science. No.
Was that the one conducted with systematic observation, followed by systematic thought?
Oh, that's another one. That's right. I forgot about the systematic observations. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Repeated observations. That's where you open your eyes, you look, then you all of a sudden like close your eyes and then open them up again. That's a repeated observation.
I guess they calculate the rate of how fast you open your eyes. Like how fast can you blink? Is that?
I thought a systematic observation would be like you put your head to the left, right? Open your eyes, move it all the way across to the right. Close your eyes, bring it back to the left again, open again, and keep seeing if you can systematically observe this phenomena.
I'm dying.
Seem empirical, surely.
Mind if I bring an end to this nonsense? So, just for the audience's benefit, that the reason it's asserted that for some reason, when having non-science or even pseudoscience, you need repeatability, is because the scientific method has the repeatability aspect in the testing of the hypothesis. That would be the systematic experimentation stage. That's got to be repeatable. Whereas the assertion, which is being poked fun at, is to say that, let's say the example is you're trying to figure out the cause of a boiling hot spring, and you go up to the hot spring and go, let's have a little look at that hot spring. I think acid content causes the hot spring to boil. And then you close your eyes really tightly and then open your eyes again and see it's still boiling and go, repeated observation. And therefore I can attribute my just so story of it being acid. Rather than repeatedly heating the water to see it boil, that would be repeated experimentation rather than just so stories and repeated observations, which is kind of meaningless.
Yep, they screw it up because empirical is observable, repeatable, testable, and falsifiable. That repeatable is focused on the operator. That operator is experiment, not observation, is what he's trying to say. So it's focused on the experiment. So I don't know, boys. They're rough.
I mean, even just saying observation, I mean, that's redundant. It's the first step.
Oh, observational science. That's another good one. Yeah, that's a bit redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also when you say that's all you need, that's a fallacy of composition, by the way. Just in case you guys want to know that out there. That's all I got are fallacies, man. That's it. It's your job. It's a difficult one to actually recognize them because they say them so fast, right? And then they're on to either a downstream topic from the fallacy or they switch to another one. So you got to be quick on those fallacies. You got to be able to recognize them quick. And of course, when you stop them, oh, why are you interrupting me? Well, because it's a bit fallacious there, buddy. And we don't want to spend 10 minutes downstream of the begging the question fallacy, which also has many other fallacies right behind it. Right? Oh, you interrupted me. I can't get my point out. Yeah, you got it out all right. Bounds.
A very appropriate preamble because a lot of the things discussed in this introduction to part 4 of part 4.
It's part 4.
Yeah, part 4 of this Master of Science presentation. All of these things we've just discussed are often asserted as being scientific. It doesn't matter if it's pendulums and gyroscopes, in the case of Coriolis claiming 15 degrees an hour as Earth rotates underneath, gravity, all of these things are formally asserted to us as science, and they're not. So ascertaining what science actually is, obviously that's what this presentation's all about. So hypothesis construction, I believe, was the last show we did. Is that right, QE?
Hypothesis for part 3? Good question. I can't even remember what part 3 was about.
I think it was hypothesis construction. I could be wrong. Nevertheless, check out, it's just my route in to plug it. Check out all 3 of the other former Master Science presentations that are on. All 3 are on both of Nathan Oakley 1918 and Quantum Race channels. Obviously, this one's going out live now, and I'll mirror it next week. But yeah, check out all the former presentations. They're fairly digestible and focused on specific aspects of science. But what aspect do we do today?
You are so coy, man. You're like, we're gonna... So I guess we ought to start the presentation. Is that what you're trying to say?
The segue. I'm so eloquent with these things. That was beautifully done until you highlighted it.
And I just like to thank you from the deepest recesses in my heart. At 12:59, I'm just ready to go live, right? And you say, so how are you going to go live? Are you using the old setup or are you using the new? Well, make sure you press go live here and here and here, right? And I'm sitting there, oh my God. Then I see it click to 1 o'clock. I said, oh, thanks a lot, man. I said, I already have this covered, but just go ahead and put some doubt in my mind that this thing's not going to go off, right? I'm there, thanks, man. But yeah, it went off. You don't have to hit all those buttons, man. All I have to do, I just have it set up to where it's set up. It's not the premiere. What do they call that?
Live show.
No, it's one where you put out the ad for the show. They have a name for it. I lost it.
A scheduled stream.
Yeah, scheduled stream. That's right. So all I have to do is hit that scheduled stream and then just hit stream. Right, and it picks it right up. So I don't have to hit go live or anything. It just picks it up. So that's a little, yeah. Does that make sense, or do you do it differently? To talk about admin.
I think we should spend 20 minutes on this.
I think we should too.
Nathan, I was going to say, as the beautiful segue was ruined, could I just add one little bit? I missed chocolate on Thursday. I did have some good news, chocolate. The copyright strike we got, I challenged, and it's been removed, and we're good to go. So, anybody wants to play some KIM with chocolate, it should be good to go. You won't, if you play it from my channel, get a strike from me. So,
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thanks.
Wasn't somebody? Well, hold on. Wasn't somebody supposed to hook another person up? I just remembered this.
Oh, getting work, aren't I?
Have to have skill.
Yeah, somebody said that they don't worry, it's coming. Something to that effect.
Yeah. To be fair, I did, didn't I? And then I went on holiday. And I'll take that gentle reminder, QE, and get to work.
I think it might be moot at this point because it's been so long.
Maybe you're going to have to lay another track, bro.
Hmm.
Something more topical.
It's only appropriate, given this, segue that we've deviated away from, for me to say that it's very important that we all subscribe to Nathan Oakley 1980 and Nathan Oakley channel, respectively. Just think I should drop that in here.
Perfect segue. Hey, so let's get to it, man. All right, Mike Discipline. Just about there. We're there. All right, welcome to part 4. We're going to start off with natural experiments, observational studies, and field studies. You will not run into this all too often. But just in case you do, because I've heard it once here and there, they'll come out. Of course, the natural experiments you guys already know from the Gimp Panda with his birds humping natural experiments. But sometimes you'll hear from these knuckle draggers, they'll start parroting wiki and they'll say, well, there's all kind of different types of experiments. You have natural experiments, observational studies, and field studies, right? So just in case you run into this, Mike Discipline. Thank you. Just in case you run into this, I have something for them. Let's take a look at this from their alma mater wiki. Natural experiments are a type of quasi-experiment design. See, as soon as you see this word right here, not that one, that one. See, that gives the game away, right? Because you have to define what quasi is. But I digress. Used by researchers, it differs from person by treatment in a way that there is not a variable that is being manipulated by the experimenter. Well, if quasi didn't give it away, then this last statement surely did. Because you all know that what they're trying to say is they don't have an independent variable here. And if you don't have an independent variable, folks, you don't have an experiment. That's why it's quasi. Well, what does quasi mean? Well, from Oxford Dictionary, quasi, seemingly, apparently, but not really. Synonym for quasi, pseudo. What does pseudo mean? Not real or genuine, sham, spurious, right? So that gives the game away. Natural experiments just have the phrase experiment in it when it's not a scientific experiment. Capiche? Good. The next one, observational studies. Well, let's go with natural experiments too. But we'll pile on here. From Greg P. from the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. The term natural experiment lacks an exact definition. Uh-oh. And many variants are found in the literature. The common thread in most definitions is exposure to the event or intervention of interest has not been manipulated by the researcher. Like I added here in brackets, read no viable independent variables. That equals no experiment. So where are these natural experiments covered? Well, there are important areas of public health policy such as suicide prevention, air pollution control, public smoking bans, and alcohol taxation, where natural experimental studies have already contributed a convincing body of evidence. I don't know. This doesn't sound like physics or biochemistry to me. Suicide prevention and air pollution. What about you? That's rhetorical, by the way. Like I said, is suicide prevention, air pollution control, public smoking, and alcohol taxation friggin' physics, chemistry, biochemistry, or biology? Yeah, doesn't sound like it, does it? Yeah, that's because it's not science. On to observational studies from Hickelman and Klaus. Introduction to Experimental Design. Observation, right out of the gate. Observational studies are not scientific experiments. I should, tell you right away. Observational studies are not experiments. There you go. And kaput. By definition, at least it has a definition. By definition, observational studies lack the manipulation required for Baconian experiments. Pretty much the same issue with observational studies as with natural experiments. There is no viable independent variable. Essentially, that's it. So it's not an experiment. So they bring it up, just jack 'em yard. Field studies. Somebody brought this out. Was it Kim Panda who kind of switched from natural experiments? I think he labeled them field studies. It was about a month ago. He switched from natural experiments, birds humping, to field experiments, birds humping. So field studies are not scientific experiments either. From their alma mater wiki. However, like natural experiments, field experiments suffer from the possibility of contamination. Experimental conditions can be controlled with precision and certainty in the lab, yet some phenomena, for example, voter turnout in an election, cannot be easily studied in a laboratory. Well, why would you study it anyway? Voter turnout is physics? I don't think so. If you think so, you'd fail 5th grade general science. By the way, let's stop right there. That looks like a good, comfortable place to stop. Questions, comments?
Shall I go?
I hope so.
You just scroll up for me a bit, John.
Scroll up. I took it off the screen.
I can't
One
see
second.
the screen. I'm on YouTube.
1 second. Go
Go
ahead. Where you want to go?
It's not. I can't see. I'll just have to wait. I just thought anyway. It's really more to do with what you were saying. Just to exemplify a couple of points, because outside of the descriptions themselves, studies being the main the main word they're using, which is a word means something. They're not using experiments; they're observational studies. by their own description, they're not claiming this. It's interesting that they're given the validity. So at that point, when you look at what you talked about, suicide, these are factors, observational and correlational. Suicide rate doesn't have necessarily one cause and effect. That I thought was a good exemplar of what these studies are. There might be certain factors that could cause and influence things, but it's not a direct cause and effect relationship with regards to what's going off. It's not like these things don't have any validity, but in no way should it be using the term experiment or claiming any scientific validity.
Validity.
Validity. Yeah, sorry. I'm struggling a bit tonight. It's been a bit of a rush, mate. I've only got a cheeky Verdicchio this evening, and she's not started yet, so maybe a bit of a dry palate.
Hold on a second. That whole spiel right in there is from epidemiology. So that should give the game away right away to you, right? Number one, go ahead.
What's the next bit I wanted to mention when he's talking about observational studies? So, epidemiology is one of the best examples of an observational study. It's not that it doesn't have validity, but it's trying to notice patterns. COVID-19, look at if there was any validity to the testing, then what they're trying to do with this is to notice patterns. What they're not doing is trying to ascribe a cause and effect relationship. The two are very different things, So that's all I want to say. Epidemiology is another good example. Stuff that's useful to us, but in no way is it science. It's not a cause and effect relationship that the whole thing is studying or set up to do. It's there to notice
correlations
and correlations.
Yep, that's what epidemiology is strictly correlational research. And by the way, there is no natural phenomena observed there.
No, it's not science.
Go ahead, Nathan.
It is, but if I insert a natural phenomena, obviously science is dealing with things in the physical and natural world. So if you've got the reproduction habits of birds, that'd be natural and a phenomena, right?
The reproduction habits of birds. I guess that would be a natural phenomena. Go on.
I was just paraphrasing Gimp Panda. Was it you called Quasimodo?
Yeah, there's nothing.
With epidemiology, again, within that, there are certain things that people may do to support their understanding of the patterns that could be classified as science. But the actual study itself is not scientific. So they may, within the study, have science that validates its correlation and the supposition and support it gives to that. But so it's not unscientific from top to bottom, and that's kind of where average baller would try to stick it as soon as you say these things. I just want to but fundamentally in and of itself, epidemiology, observational studies, they of themselves aren't scientific, and the confirmation or statement that they give you is not scientific. And I think what we see is that it's portrayed as scientific, and that's why it's quasi and pseudo.
Right. You got it. Yes. Yeah. If it's claimed to be actual science, that's what makes it pseudoscience. See, the epidemiological researchers, they already know that it's not science, so they don't portray it that way. But others outside who don't know what the heck they're talking about call it science. That's when it becomes pseudoscience in that specific case and context. How about that?
Also be quite tricky with it. So, I mean, I'm going to descend this into absurdity just for the sake of example, but if you say my phenomena is the egg that's produced, that's the phenomena, and I'm going to vary the aftershave that the bird wears, therefore science, right? I'm just saying, rather than an absurd notion of me varying aftershave to make it obvious, but if I say, the scent of the bird that's accumulated from its environment, I'm varying that to see if it has a better success rate of breeding. Well, that almost sounds like science, right?
Almost.
That's like if birds hump, then
Oh my
egg
God.
would be the ball of a shot. I think within that, the rate of birds humping, you may be able to get a correlation to the number of chicks the next year. That would be an observational study. Within that observational study, one of the foundational things would be scientific, that in your scientific repeated experiment, no egg fertilized when it wasn't impregnated by a sperm. You could confirm that there is never a fertilized egg created when there isn't a sperm. So that could be scientific, that statement. But to then try and bring it out any further, you lose the science and you go into the realms of observational and correlational stuff.
Oh my. All right. Anything else with this? I think it's pretty cut and dry with those three types: the observational studies, field experiments, field studies, or natural experiments. I think it's pretty cut and dry to anyone that can fog a mirror. Even if you haven't been around these types of quote unquote experimental designs, it should jump off the page at you that we're not talking about science here. Science is strictly and solely interested in experiments, actual experiments. And these ain't them. We good?
It's just another part of the hypnosis. Just say science and attribute everything we can look at to science. You just look at stuff, notice patterns, write those patterns down. Okay, great. That's all science, according to these people that parrot the pseudoscience, right? Because, I mean, even right there in your citations, observational studies are not experiments.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
That's
Have a
what I
good day.
said.
Like, it's not an experiment. Well, if you don't have science, then why are you even calling it science? You don't have science without experiment, and you say right there you don't have experiment. So what are we talking about? You're looking at stuff. Okay, great. What are you doing after that? What are you manipulating? Nothing. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. It's not science.
Yep. Simple as that. Yep. Any more on that one? Oh. Mic discipline, please. So this is a real stumbling block to many people, right? And I brought this out, I can remember from the beginning. I think it was on Cathexis's channel, if I'm not mistaken, but I had this in the hopper for a while. I didn't want to bring this out because this tends to shock people, especially ones that think they have an actual science degree, because I always catch them on this. It's the PhDs, the masters, students, not the rank and file. I could care less about that. But I usually catch the educated on this, right? The difference between natural law and scientific theory. You see, they think that the laws of physics, that they're actual scientific. They're not. They are natural laws. There's nothing scientific about them. So this is a real stumbling block. I got somebody on this, a PhD on this about a week ago. It wasn't too comfortable for him. But anyway, I digress. So natural law versus scientific theory. Scientific theories explain the how and the why, the mechanism and the process, and identifies the cause, as in germ theory. Scientific theories are the result of validated, confirmed scientific hypotheses that have been rigorously tested. In other words, scientific theories are the end result of the scientific method, essentially. Right? You see the cause right here? Mechanism in the process? Yeah. Goes through the scientific method, as opposed to natural laws. Natural laws describe a big difference between explanations and descriptions. Right off the bat, that should jump off the page at you. They only describe the what and the ises. The cause is not applicable. they are based solely on observations. They're often expressed mathematically. That is, for example, the second law of thermodynamics. With natural laws, the cause and how-why mechanism are both nonsensical and invalid inquiries. It's just an is and an are. For example, how or why does heat flow from hot to cold always? We don't know, and we'll never know. All we know is that every single time it just does and is. Ergo, natural law. That's why they're called the laws of thermodynamics and not the theories of thermodynamics. Natural laws never become scientific theories or vice versa. Each are domain specific inherently. So let me say this again. That's why they're called the laws of thermodynamics and not the theories of thermodynamics. Hopefully everyone catches that. So what should be your next objection? Challenge your inquiry, right? What makes the laws of physics scientific? That should be the next question, right? I already gave you the answer. Are they scientific? Nope. Natural laws, that is what they call the laws of physics, are not scientific. By definition, it's apparent. They're merely descriptions, like I said, often expressed mathematically, of plain old observations of nature. However, the scientific method is employed to elucidate and explain cause and effect, the whys and the hows, not describe the whats and the ises. We're in a category error. Natural laws only breach the first step of the scientific method. Observe a phenomenon. You can't formulate a scientific hypothesis, step 3, because a viable cause or independent variable doesn't exist. Forever illusory. That's why I challenged that PhD, because he was talking about experiments first. He didn't know what an experiment was. And then I said, yeah, the natural laws, they're not physical laws. Those are just natural laws. That's it. They don't go through the scientific method. He says, well, I beg to differ. I said, really? I said, okay. Give me the hypothesis for the second law of thermodynamics. That is, give me the cause for entropy increase. Right? The question's damn near lunacy. It is lunacy. You can't answer that question. Right? So we kind of fell out from there, if you can imagine. Let's take a listen to a subject matter expert from MIT, Max Tegmark. We humans have gradually discovered many additional recurring shapes and patterns in nature, involving not only motion and gravity, but also areas as disparate as electricity, magnetism, light, heat, chemistry, radioactivity, and subatomic particles. These patterns are summarized by what we call our laws of physics. Patterns? Huh. So we're into pattern recognition in science? From the same reference, when we look at reality, check this out. When we look at reality through the equations of physics, we find they describe patterns and regularities. This is nonsensical buffoonery, folks. I don't know. Reality through equations of physics. This is all... If this doesn't jump off the page at you, you need to start over. I mean, this is quite eye-opening right here. Reality through equations, really. That's interesting, Max. Therefore, the laws of physics are mathematical, like I said above, descriptions of mere observations of what? Well, the laws of nature. That's it. Back to patterns and regularities, but wait a second. My son is a video game master champion. He can readily recognize and describe the recurring patterns and regularities present in the game. All the while being absolutely clueless about the underlying architecture, that is the software of the game. But he intuitively knows that the patterns and regularities in the game are not the cause of the game. Okay? And is my 10-year-old a scientist? He's not 10 anyway. He's 14 now. Number 2. How can the laws of physics descriptions of patterns and regularities in nature via equations have anything whatsoever to do with the scientific method, science, when the scientific method is solely based on hypothesis testing, which is only employed to explain what? Cause and effect relationships, the hows and the whys, right? Back to describing or descriptions and explanations. Descriptions focus solely on the whats and the ises, whereas explanations focus solely on hows and whys. That's the difference between these two guys, right? And there's a chasm in here. It's unbreachable, right? You're in different categories. Like I said, there's kind of a big difference between describing something and explaining cause and effect, like actual hypothesis testing, experiments. Watching heat flow from hot to cold or gases flow from high pressure to low pressure isn't an experiment. It's merely observing a phenomenon. Have the laws of motion ever caused a single billiard ball to move across a table? This story begins and ends at the first step of the scientific method. Is that science? Nope. But we can predict. Oh, a stick save, right? You'd think. I don't think so. So after observing heat flow from hot to cold a few billion times, second law of thermodynamics, without fail, you scientifically predict, genuflect, that if I set my scalding hot cup of coffee on the table for 20 minutes, it's going to get cooler? Wow, a seer. Thanks, Captain Obvious. You must be a scientist. A complete moron at the beginning of time could have reached the same conclusion in a coma. Basket weaving is more scientific than scientific laws. Like I said, it's a misnomer. They just throw the term scientific in front of the word law by mere fiat with any warrant whatsoever. Exactly what they do. It's a turkey squirrel scenario. Makes no sense. I could throw the word turkey in front of here. Who cares? Moron. Then what do they do after they do that? Right? After they put the word science in front of it. Well, since heat flows from hot to cold always, describe it using equations, then pronounce from the rooftops that this is scientific law. Again, science, genuflect. This is second grade slick because it greases the skids for the propaganda efforts with Joe Coffey and Betty Breadmaker, the masses of the scientific illiterate public, to now put the term scientific in front of just about anything for veracity and validation. Evolution, big bangs, multiverses, black holes, gravity, gravy waves, dark matter, spinning balls, ether. You see the game? In conclusion, file 13, the term scientific with law is a belly laugher. It's incoherent, doesn't fit. What they are simply natural laws. That's it. Questions, comments?
Oh, it's good. Very good. You got to stop people in their tracks if they start to use the word science. Yeah, the laws are inviolable. Doesn't mean they've been through the method. They haven't. Descriptions of things that happen always.
Exactly. Yep.
I wouldn't disagree with any of that. Totally back that up. Again, not a lot to say on that other than, one of the things we're asked to believe are in violation of these natural laws. And the majority of them were, it's called science fiction. For something to be in opposition to these things, whether it's time travel or traveling in space when there's gas contained without a container next to that, these are in violation, and there's a reason that all of these stories are called science fiction, because they are things that have never, ever, 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 ever been shown being correct, or it not happen. And again, it's an odd one, isn't it? For me, is it more or less solid truth than something that's scientifically proven.
Good
For me,
point. It's a good point. You see, and this is what I'm talking about, because Adam is educated, and this is probably one of the more difficult ones, maybe eye-opening experience, but you made a good point. Did I ever say that those natural laws were false? No. This doesn't have anything to do with the truth or veracity of those scientific, I even say it, scientific laws, because I'm indoctrinated with it, right? But they're not scientific. That doesn't mean they're not true. That doesn't mean the second law of thermodynamics is false or somehow false or maybe. No, they just are not science. They haven't gone through the scientific method. Correct? Got it? Not you, Adam, but everyone else. Hello? Is anybody out there?
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
it's worse than that, though, isn't it? It's like, how the frig would you put that through the scientific method is the next point. When you then apply and look at the natural laws, how would you try to validate them scientifically? You can't, can you?
No, you can't. You can't do it. I mean, you can observe a phenomenon. Okay, let's try it. Like I said, give me the hypothesis for entropy increase.
I mean, you're screwed.
Yeah,
You're
you
done.
figure out why the coffee gets cold. Why is that happening? Why does that always happening? How do you figure that out? How do you determine the cause of that? Being that that's just what happens.
Yep. Yeah,
can-
it's dead in its tracks. Go ahead.
You can do a bit of science and say that the rate of airflow past the coffee cup will affect the rate of cooling scientifically. But you're not getting close to why. You get
No, you'll never get close. Like I said, it's forever illusory.
I know the answer is accelerating. The coffee is accelerating.
Yeah, oh goodness.
And the wind is cooling it off during the acceleration.
And be careful. Let me put another caveat out there. Be careful. Just because something is called a law doesn't make it so.
I was waiting to jump in on that exact point. That's
Ah.
part of the trick, isn't it? Why would you call these laws, which are inviolable, scientific when it's inaccurate? Well, because it opens the floodgates to have the law of gravitation. Well, the difference, the very specific, distinct difference, is between inviolable, i.e. occurring always without exception, versus debunked by letting go of a helium balloon. So you can call something a law, doesn't mean it's inviolable. And you just have to show it to be incorrect to debunk it, and therefore it's not a law anymore. It has to apply always. You can't have something that's debunked, like the law of gravitation, and say, well, it's got the word law. Well, yeah, so what?
Precisely. Because that's just a linguistic gymnastic game. Right?
So
Sir.
we can gravitation's a good one, the law of gravitation, and say helium balloon debunks it. I was pondering there. I don't think we're confident enough with a law of density disequilibrium. Any object that's taken out of density disequilibrium will seek to reach equilibrium.
Shout out to Rob Keane. Says, can I be unmuted, please?
Yeah, and answer that. I've not read it as a natural law, QE, but surely that is a natural law. If you take any object, take it out of density equilibrium, it will try to re-seek re-equilibrium.
Are you asking me?
Supported.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. I'm just on the fly here. I was just.
Are you saying is relative density law like?
To me, a natural law would be if you take any object, whatever medium it's in, and remove it from its equilibrium, it will always try to re-seek the original equilibrium. Now, you may be able to impede that or stop it with other things, but that doesn't stop the natural desire for entropy to follow and it to re-seek that equilibrium you've taken out of. to me, would be a correct interpretation of the law of gravitation if you want to use it in any real sense.
I can divert this real quick. You want to define equilibrium for us, Adam?
I knew. See that?
No, I don't want to go down that road. I'm not going to go down there because it'll get too much information. That's how I usually bust people that talk about equilibrium. They throw that term around and they don't know what it means. It does have specific meaning in chemistry, and it's not the same one that we're talking about here, correct?
No, because I was specifically trying to use that kind of definition where we will try and re-seek equilibrium, you know, with in terms of the law of gravitation and how we, you know, how we understand that when it spoke to us, even though we know it's within that paradigm. Is that what is that understanding we have of it? To me, and it is from a natural law perspective, it is that as I described it. You can get into what is equilibrium, and particularly in relation to trying to supersede a gravitation theory, which is probably I should stop. Don't try.
Yeah. You're getting
nonsense.
Yeah, I would say stop. Number one, the universal law of gravitation. If you're having a proxy for that, number one, and you know this. I mean, that really doesn't exist. Actually, it was put forward, but it's not. There's no efficacy with there's nothing. In fact, it's wrong, right? So it's not a law. I don't know if we should go trying to replace it. They tried with the theory, which is lunacy, which isn't a theory anyway. But we could talk about relative, like I was talking about before with relative density. I had a whole spill. Remember that spill I had? It was a while ago on Skype about the real question is, why is the more dense atmosphere close to the Earth? That's the real question. That's another forever illusory question, right? So it's more law-like, is what I'm saying.
He's asked the super chat just to maybe ask a question. Is it okay if I take Rob off mute temporarily, find out what he wants?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a question, Rob? No, I haven't preempted him, so he's probably buggered off now.
Sorry about that, Rob.
For now, I'll pop him back on mute, but we will have sections of the show, Rob, where we ask the panel. That's why they're typically on mute. We just keep the ballbusters off mute while the presentation's going on, but we will get to you, I promise.
Yeah, at the end, we'll take everyone off who's not a ballbuster. Yep. All right, we good? Everyone got everything out with that, with the natural laws, how they're not scientific? Pretty easy, I'd say, at this point, because I have presented on this a few times in the past. Everyone got this? Yeah,
Yep.
we do. We do, QE. Thanks, man. All right, what we got? So, taking everything we've discussed above concerning science, not only the stuff that's above, but in the previous 3 blocks of instruction and the scientific method, the empirical nature of it, then why are people arguing ad nauseum, never ending, over whether the Earth is a sphere or a flat plane without quick resolution? I mean, it should be the first clue. Do people argue incessantly whether the lack of vitamin C causes scurvy or the lack of insulin with type 1 diabetes patients causes diabetic ketoacidosis? You hear people arguing about that? Is there debates on this? No. They don't, because they're empirically validated by experiments. Over. There is no debate. I mean, it's not subjective, it's objective. See the problem? So, is the Earth a sphere or a flat plane? Is that a cause and effect question, or is it a concrete noun, what is question? Key point, concrete nouns or what is questions are outside the purview of the scientific method. Simple. Only why or how questions based on observations on the first step can be adjudicated or reconciled. That's it. A scientific hypothesis from Lieu, Cambridge University, Strategic Thinking for Scientific Discovery. A scientific hypothesis is based on cause and effect reasoning. A scientific hypothesis does not merely state X and Y may be related, but explains why they are related. Right? This isn't a cause and effect relationship. Whether the Earth is flat or a sphere, it's a category error. Right? You have no viable X, so you have no Y. Simple. So for concrete nouns, for example, is it a sphere, ball, or a flat plane? Your only recourse is to attempt to explain the cause of either, aka the how or the why. You can't do it. So basically, each and every single train wreck proof of a sphere or flat, everyone bumbles, stumbles, and fumbles with, it's non sequitur fallacy on nuclear steroids. Why? Because number one, you have no viable independent variable, and number two, you have no coherent question. All are inane bollocks, and boiled down to this: why is a bread box rectangular? True or false? That's the actual question that your head's a perfect analogy. Right? That's why it's ridiculous. Every single claim from ball-tard spinning space monkey religioners is an affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy. Now, oftentimes they don't get to the end. They'll stop at if P then Q, and then we stop them before they get to Q, therefore P, but everyone knows it when they hear it, especially now, right? Here's a familiar one. If evolution is true, P, then insert any Darwinian grab bag post-op observation, fossils, homology, similarity, genetic variation, and others, Q. We observe post-op observation, Q. Therefore, evolution is true, therefore P. Right? That's an affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy. Or, back to our genre, if the spherical Earth where the radius of la is true, P, we will observe differing elevation angles to Polaris, Q. We observe differing elevation angles to Polaris, Q. Therefore, the spherical Earth is true, therefore P. Right? They'll actually stop right here. Right? They don't finish it. But everyone knows where they're going. It logically follows this is where they're going, even though it's illogical. The logical fallacy is that P doesn't necessarily follow from Q. For example, if I had just eaten a whole pizza, P, I would feel very full, Q. I feel very full, Q. Therefore, I have just eaten a whole pizza, therefore P. Well, you know, that's a train wreck. Couldn't I have eaten a 20-ounce ribeye with fries or the old 96er? Prove the spherical Earth first. Then move on. What we got here in Shangri-La is a screaming testimony documented over and over again of what happens as a result of what I term or phrase the game. This is the game. We have the pseudoscience religions, astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology, along with their brethren, paleontology, geology, anthropology, archaeology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is, and yes, I'm still laughing, theoretical physics. Crocheting is more scientific than all these combined. Why? Well, neither of the masqueraders can follow the scientific method. Science, duh. Because watch this. Because the pseudoscience priests from religions above know that Joe Coffey and Betty Breadmaker masses, that's ball-tard spinning space monkeys, wouldn't know what actual science or basic reasoning was if it landed on their head, spun around, and whistled Dixie. They then can pretty much pontificate anything under the term science via clumsy equivocation fallacy and second-grade linguistic word gymnastics, and have their brain-dead religious hordes from their congregations mindlessly parrot any and all manner of blatant pseudoscience religious propaganda, that is, fairy tales, that they hear directly from them, or the metric tons of sermons posted on their church's website, Wiki, Google, and or thousands of affiliate websites. However, when the pseudoscience priests or anyone from their congregation is directly challenged by anyone with a 5th grade general science acumen or better and or can fog a mirror, then they call the challenger names, pick any appeal to ridicule fallacy akin to the tactics employed on the 2nd grade playground, carpet bomb a barrage of logical fallacies, contradict themselves with every other breath, and muster their hordes and appeal to the consensus fallacy of their pseudoscience congregationers and priests. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. That's all we get. It's simply pseudoscience religion, right? Parroted incessantly by fanatical, indoctrinated wankers, that's the spinning space monkey ball-tards, that couldn't tell the difference between a Bunsen burner and a beach ball. Then, in a twist of irony, rail against religion with voracious anger, all the while being neck-deep in one. Yeah, that religion's scientifically falsified, by the way. Mind-numbing greenery. Thanks, Globe-Tard Goobers, for perfectly illustrating. The end. Questions, comments?
Shout out to Flat Earth Data. Says, John, QE, is ace. Nathan Oakley is ace. Chocolate is ace. Arwin is ace. 10th Man is ace. And, of course, Flat Earth Data is ace. Shout out to you, Flat Earth Data. Thank you for the super chat.
I'm not happy about that.
Adam Meakin is not ace. I don't think he had room on the super chat, Adam. That's all it is.
No, clearly, no, you can't add that. You can't add to a man's words. I'm good.
I just did.
I'll just say for the record, Adam is ace, though.
That's true, Chocolate. Well said. Adam is ace.
He is ace.
The Adam.
Betty is ace.
Bouncing Betty is ace.
You think that'll cover me?
Oh, yeah, just to round back onto track. Yeah, the game, right? The game is the hijacking of a claimed pseudoscience by use of language to make you think they've got something that's empirically validated when it's just their stories that they've made up and don't have any actual scientific validity for them. That's the point of the last passage, just so we're back on the rails and hopefully talking about the subject.
Oh, no, because I just want to say that Flat Earth Data is also super ace out on the super chat.
That is true also. Although he did also tell us that in his own super chat rather than saying how ace you were.
Yeah, but I just want to give it him back. To put it in a super chat, respect. So, I'm just sending that in.
Oh, he has. I just caught that up. Sorry, I didn't know what you were talking about. So another shout out to Flat Earth Data. He says, on its own, dedicated the entire super chat just to this. Adam is super ace. There we go. Not wrong.
Adam, you're super duper ace, man. Always been. Yeah,
Find out some comments from the guests.
yeah. Go ahead.
But before I do, Chocolate or Arwin, did you want to add anything before I do go to the other guests?
I mean, everything said was on point, so it's pretty simple. It's that just recognize the hijacking. It's like everything else, right? They hijack perspective, they hijack words, they hijack science, right? So,
Shout out to James Richard, who says, where would Flat Earth be if it wasn't for the historic quantum eraser? Indeed, we owe a lot to QE. Thank you for the super chat. James Richard. Should we start with, as he super chatted to find out when he was going to be taken off mute, do you want to start with Rob Keane?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Maybe he just wanted off mute. Yeah, he just wanted to know he could talk. We'll start with Brian. I'll leave him off mute. He might join up.
Yeah.
In the conversation. Brian, how you doing?
Hey Nathan, hey QE, hey everybody. Yeah, I only have one small thing to say. For the flat earthers, a lot of flat earthers find quantum eraser hard to deal with, and they find the flat earth debates hard to deal with because every time one of them is explaining something and they say the word science or they say the word experiment, if they're not saying it in the correct context, if there's a ton of bricks come down upon them, on top of them, and so it causes some of them to be defensive about it and even say, well, it's science to me kind of stuff. But what they don't understand is, what would be the point in John doing this presentation and other presentations like it, and then on Tuesday in the flat earth debates, sit there and listen to someone, especially on our side, using the word experiment or science incorrectly and say nothing about it? There'd be no point in him even doing these. So people on the flat earth side should realise the reason that he's doing this is to take the pseudo out of science. And he can't draw the line with just ballers. He has to do it with flat earth too. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll reiterate that. I mean, you just have to have a good understanding as flat earthers that it's nothing personal. If you miscategorize science, we'll cut you.
Can I try reiterate that? I think respect there, John. You taught me a bit.
No, I didn't.
The importance of its
I didn't teach you anything.
reason. Well, you did.
No, I didn't. You already
You gave me a
Hold
shake,
up. Don't
so-
rumpus me.
No, you the man. No, you the man.
Rumpus,
no,
rumpus.
you the man.
Stop rumpusing me. I didn't teach you anything. You already knew it. I just had to highlight it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say anyway. but that highlighting's important, right? But look at what we're doing to the ballers, and I think for us to maintain our integrity, for us to go forward and to define things, so that we have got a bloody clue the world we're living, that we can say this is scientifically proven. It's really important for us flat earthers to abide by those rules ourselves, not wander off and use pseudoscience ourselves to build a paradigm that we all so desperately want. Because I said it the other day, in terms of the ballers, they want to jump to another paradigm, and I think Nathan said it. For me, I agree. There's a majesty to the unknown. There's a certainty to it as well, the certainty of a creator. And with that unknown majesty, I'm enjoying this ride. I'm not fearful, and I don't need to use pseudoscience to create myself a new paradigm. And I think as we move forward, it's important that as a community, if we're going to hold our validity, we stick to the skills that QE is showing us right now. Really important. So enough smoke blame, John, but thanks, mate. And we've got to keep going on this because it is important.
Thank you, sir. Yep, I agree. We will not compromise. Not on this topic.
Rob. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We'll try Rob again. Rob,
Yep.
You there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello,
Yeah,
we hear you.
All right, good. Yeah, I got nothing.
Did you say I got nothing to say?
That was great.
That was brilliant. That's made my day.
It was good.
I love you guys.
Good.
Great.
Hold on a sec. I'm crying here.
Classic.
Paste a super chat. Can it be taken off mute when he finally gets to the mic? Yeah, I've got nothing to say.
He private messaged me too.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Rob. I'll just wipe the tears off my eyes and then I'll get back to I got nothing to say. Oh, dear. Oh, that was very funny. Right, skeptical. Have you got anything to add? Please don't have any more tears.
How dare you mute me, you bastages! Well, you got to
Is that what
say
you said in my
nothing.
chat? How dare you mute me? I'm sorry, skeptical. You go ahead. Sorry.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Man.
Oh yeah, mate, just marvelous, brilliant presentation as usual. But the third part, which is very unfortunate, is that how science has been deliberately hijacked, and the very reason why I'm for myself as a radical skeptic towards like even scientific inquiry nowadays is because of that, really. So I don't even you know what I mean? So it's like the precious valuable thing like scientific method, which is a very important thing now. It's been hijacked at every single level, right? And now whatever you turn out we exposed to, like, to this bloody unscientific pseudo-scientific, denomination, and cool, okay, oh, science, we've done this experiment, oh, it's called science. No, it's not science, mate. You know what I mean? So such a confusion creates within oneself this this kind of attitude of skepticism. I'm speaking for my as a skeptic, really, towards scientific field, like as Q pointed out, paleontology, as archaeology, and other one goes to the scientific fields. Honestly, it was a very marvelous presentation, QE. Thank you once again. Very brilliant. Yeah. But I just have a particular question regarding a discipline called epidemiology. Probably Adam, he brought it up, and then you say, okay, it's not scientific. So how do you say that epidemiology is not a scientific field?
You want to take that,
And
Adam?
if not, well, sorry?
I think, first of all, I'd go...
You spoke about epidemiology. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Epidemiology is the study of the spread of communicable diseases within a population. Okay, so is there just one factor that causes the spread of a communicable disease within populations? So if you want to make it scientific and you want to make scientific statements within epidemiology, you can do so, but you would need a very rigorous experiment, and it would be very narrowly defined and not necessarily that applicable to actually the importance of epidemiology, which is, I say, to study the spread of the disease. Now, it's a science, it's a for the tongue, yeah, it's a discipline, yeah, that is there to give data for governments, whatever, to try and combat. That's its fundamental premise. It's not there to define why that disease spreads. That's not its purpose. It's fundamentally not of use to be scientific. It's there to give predictions and understandings that may warrant scientific investigation later on that you could do in a more defined way. But in of itself, the study of epidemiology doesn't need to be scientific. It's not set out to be.
Because now in front of me on cdc.gov, by definition, epidemiology is the study, scientific, systematic, and data-driven of the distribution, frequency, pattern, and determinants, as he calls this, risk factors of health, related states or events, not just diseases in specified population, neighborhood, school, city, state, country, global. So it takes into consideration the causes, which, in a scientific sense, like a viable, independent variable.
Listen to what you just listed in all the disciplines that epidemiology takes into account to give its opinion. One of them was science, of course. Science has to be in there. Some of the, we talked about birds humping. You can work science at a lower level and it will validate some of your base assumptions. Yeah, but a lot of the other stuff, list them again. Listen to what they are. That's how epidemiology comes to its conclusion. So fundamentally, it's not scientific, is it? It's a opinion based. More fundamentally, when it comes to its opinion, politically, all of those different viewpoints for epidemiology can have different weightings.
Answer your question, skeptical?
Okay, to some extent, yeah, thank you. Just I have a last question to you, QE, regarding gravity. Can we speak about the law
Broke up. Say that again.
Say that one more time.
Skeptical.
Did we lose you?
Yep. Skeptical.
He's hey, skeptical. Skeptical, drop out and come back in again, man. You're lighting up, but nothing's coming through. Drop out, come back in.
We'll move on. So, is it Cyrus? Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, Cyrus the Great.
Yo, what's going on, man? Dude, I came in here a bit late. I missed like
What up?
a solid
What up,
90%. What's good, Chocolate? How you doing, man? QE, Nathan, everybody else.
Brother.
That's good.
Did you have a question?
No,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
No.
Hey, skeptical, hold up. We'll get right back to you, man. We went on to Cyrus the Great. Just hold on.
Dude, no questions, man. I wish I hopped in here from the beginning, but it was great. I really liked it. But yeah, no questions, man. So if you want to move on to Skeptical, go for it.
Perfect. Now we've got him back. Can you hear us, Skeptical?
Oh, absolutely. I just have a last question, like to QE regarding the gravity. Can we talk about law of gravity instead of a theory of gravity?
No, there is no law of gravity.
Why?
There is no gravity.
But a law of gravity, it just is. Okay, what pulls you down, it just is. It just happens.
What about helium balloons?
It just is.
Yeah, but
Damn.
Okay, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but obviously, yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
I mean,
Sounds
yeah,
like
you're
Lord.
right. You're right about that part, right? It just is. It's just what we see happen. But the problem is the use of that word gravity, which implies that it's only going down. And then when John says helium balloon, there
Yeah.
you got something going up.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that
Yeah, absolutely.
you just call this gravity thing a law, which means it happens all the time. But if gravity means it's going down, you got something going up, that defies the law. So therefore, it's not even a law.
yeah.
So,
Another thing
like,
about that, skeptical, is if you think about it, the universal law of gravitation, it's the only law that ever been proposed in the history of man that has a cause inside it. Mass
Just about-
attracting.
okay. Oh, so you would need like kind of a law that explains, kind of, let's say, a holistic law that
No.
explains why objects go up and down at the same time.
Now, you've missed his subtlety. So what he's saying is, the law isn't ever going to have the capability of going through the scientific method. You can't ascertain what is the cause of hot always going to cold. You're not going to elucidate that as a cause and effect relationship, and laws are not causally attributable. Whereas in the case of the law of gravity, you're saying there's a downward force 9.8 meters per second caused by gravity. So you're asserting a causal relationship in a law. It's total nonsense.
Yep.
Understand. Yeah, correct.
On a number of different fronts, it's a debunked or defunct law. It was defunct as soon as it was proposed. It has quite a number of issues with it, but we just stick with get them the correct or to parrot the correct pseudoscience, which is 100. They're 105 years out of date, so that's what we want them to do.
Was one of the things that Skeptical mentioned, which was theory. You said something about theory. Did you want to repeat that?
Nathan, I just want to reiterate the comparison you gave. That's a great one. Hot to cold and gravity.
So a natural law is just descriptive, whereas a scientific theory is explicative, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
You got
thank
it.
you. All right.
There's more to it. No. It's not just that it's descriptive. It's describing something that happens always, so it's inviolable. Whereas your cause and effect relationship that isn't a law anyway, in the case of gravitation, is debunked with a helium balloon.
Correct. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Travis, can you hear us?
Yeah, he's on
He's on
deafen.
Yeah, he's on deafen. Is there anybody else? Elijah, how you doing? Elijah?
Hey, what's up, guys? What's up? Sorry, I'm super late. I've just been in the
What's up,
background.
bro?
Eyes up.
Yep, hope all is well.
Yeah, everything's hunky dory.
If you asked anything, I came in on like the tail end of that, Elijah. So I don't know what's going on.
Have you got any questions in regards to the final presentation in terms of Master of Science, talking about things like natural experiments and things of that nature? Any questions about that?
Not at the moment. Brilliant as always. Thank you to the panel.
Feel free to take the piss out of Gimp Panda and talk about bird humping. Feel free, you know. Knock yourself out. Oh, okay, fair enough. I think that's pretty much it. Is there anybody else? Any more that I've missed? I don't think there is there? Oh, Flat Earth Data. So let's get him off server mute. Hello, Flat Earth Data. Thank you for both the super chats. Adam is indeed ace.
Here's boys. One question for QE is I can't, I cannot find methodology in their science that they need time as an independent variable, right? In everything they impose, right?
I sure hope not, because I hope if they do, then they're trying to prove or the cause is time. Why would they do that?
Well, I'm just saying, in anything, I shouldn't say anything, but in certain subjects, they definitely keep heavily using time is their cause for independent variable. It's just like, that's what I'm just bringing up.
Yeah, no, you're right. They do all the time. You're exactly right. I don't know why, because time, unless we're specifically talking about Einsteinian relativistic mechanics, even then, it's non sequitur to have the cause of something as time. So it's. I don't know if I could say anything else, but
here's something. Here's why I'm bringing it up. If you look at the calendars, right? Hebrew, Muslim, or Islam calendar, the Hebrew calendar, and then the Roman calendar. They literally. Now I'll give you a little like an idea where I'm coming from. So like psychologically, you can invent a process of living that has a negative or positive outcome on the individual, right? And it's based on these calendars, which are derivative in time. You follow?
Yeah.
So if you have a particular philosophy attached to that calendar, you can manipulate the person based on time. For instance, women and their menstrual cycle.
Oh, God.
Right? They can, based on a calendar, they can...
Hold on a second. Nathan wants to step in here.
Yep.
I'm all good. I just said I wasn't following. I still don't, but I'm more than happy to just listen.
Okay, so my premise is where I'm coming from is, for instance, let's say a Chinese emperor in the 1300s had 3 villages, and each those villages he prescribed a certain music framework. So one village was allowed to play this chord structure, this village was allowed to play that chord structure, and that village was allowed to play that chord structure. Okay. Now, minors chords were banned, major chords were banned, vice versa. Some diminished chords were banned. Interesting psychological effect on the human. Now, in calendar world that we live in, North American calendar is different from, Eastern calendar. Ours, the one that we are under, must have some sort of psychological implications because it's based in time, that particular calendar, as versus other calendars that are based in different times. For instance, the modern calendar has to add an extra day every 4 years, where the Hebrew calendar doesn't, the Islam calendar doesn't, right? So just wanted to bring that up. And they use that time variable as an experiment, if you get what I'm saying now.
I don't.
John, time's a funny one. There's time we use time, but time for me is it's a methodology that you can use to describe a physical experience. So over time, the gas canister had a hole in it, and it took so long to deflate, or etc. But when we use time in things, because time follows a natural law, as it only ever goes forwards, it just is a thing. It's not something we could ever manipulate, but it's a very good way of describing an event if we use time on the x-axis, for example. In no way is that scientific when we do that, but it's a very good way of us getting an understanding of the dynamics sometimes of what's happening. We can plot like that, and it gives us understanding to then maybe apply. Deflation of a balloon is a great example. You plot the pressure against time as it deflates the hole. There's all sorts of things that you're able to use your abductive reasoning to follow from that. But time in of itself is, I'd say, it's useful in that, but it's not manipulable, so it can't be scientific.
It's not the cause of anything. So,
no.
Listen, time is just the conceptual medium in which all events in what we call the universe take place in. It's not causing anything. You're just immersed in it, right? So it's non sequitur to put it as anything other than a constant or control variable.
A Glober once said that time is the progression of existence. And I simply asked him, well, can you manipulate the progression of existence? And he said, no. Well, there you go.
Exactly.
I think a lot of basis for the independent variable idea comes from modeling. For instance, in algorithmic programs that are heavily reliant on certain variables, they have a time frame to execute those variables. So I think in that sense, there are modeling the independent variable as time in the model program.
Yeah, but time's not causing. No. You got it wrong.
So what I'm saying, for let me hear you out. So let's say if they have a particular free trade agreement, they have to use algorithms in the free trade agreement to determine a supply and demand ratio. So they play a time duration out to find out if they add modes, if you will, of this model in between. These are their dependents, and they're adding time frame. So 2 months for this duration, 3 months for this duration, 6, and they're seeing the algorithm play out in time in that model. So I think a lot of these presuppositions are based in the model mindset. So it's like a cartoon world, if you will, but they still have remedial and evident correlations to reality, because you can predict certain events using this process.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
that's what
not
I
correlations.
You're jumping off the deep end, brother.
I'm just saying what I notice in their language. I'm just reporting I'm observing and reporting what I see in their language and their process of thinking. Right?
As soon as you use time, like say your x-axis, you stop even doing correlations. You get into descriptions of things. So it's just what's happening with time. That's all. What is changing with time? That's your x and your y. That's all you get into. Not you go straight outside the realms of why. You're just describing what's physically happening when you use time. You get me? As soon as you use those as any variable that you're comparing it against, it negates science.
I think this is particular. The use in their models is where it is valid for predictions. But then again, you have a probability.
That's where I tried to interrupt you before. As soon as you said the word prediction, that's where their magic.
That's what I'm saying. It is. It's like an insurance agent looking at somebody's lifestyle, and they run it through a computer, and they give a probability of their habits and what rate to insure them at. So I'm just saying that they use that fundamental thing. It's not applicable in reality. It's usually mostly in models, is my point.
And that's the point, though. That's where the magic trick lies. So, yeah, when you're talking about models and you're qualifying things with time, even if it's quantitatively how much something will happen over a given period, number one, the period that you're going to derive, the concept we're using has been derived from the stars that they're going to use in your example as a cause in a model. So you've got the time itself derivative from the stars in the sky, the lights in the sky, if you will, and their movements, and then you derive this concept. But when you start asserting a prediction and you're using this overarching vocabulary that alludes to science, then a prediction becomes very specific. It's a hypothesis. That's a scientific prediction. But when they're using their mathematics and qualifying it over a scale on an x-axis with time, not getting a formulated hypothesis with an assumption of cause to qualify an effect that you think is going to be the cause of that effect. That's not what you're doing when you qualify it with time, because, as we've said about 5 times, time cannot be a cause.
No, it's the result, really, not the cause, right?
No, time doesn't result. No, it's not the effect. It's not the result. Time is, we're immersed in it. It's nothing. It's just the medium.
You guys
that's
check out
immersed.
IBM and what they've done with blood types. So
IBM, listen, we're outside natural science. When all your examples are outside natural science.
Yeah, it's just model based, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
the problem. Ooh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just think that, like, I mean, if you think you could use time, I mean, because time is in everything we do. How would you ever just pick and choose when time is going to be the independent variable?
Well, here's the thing with IBM. So data collection, right? When you get to be like you develop a pattern. So let's say over 50 years of data collection based on a demographic and blood type, you're going to develop a probability pattern. That probability is predictable within maybe a certain percentage of error. And this is refined, right? So the IBM has refined this technology where they, based on your blood type, can associate a certain percentage of disease, a certain percentage of ailments based on time. And this is from a previous collection of data, but it is just model based. So it's not.
The method of science is empirical. So when you establish your cause, it's not within a certain percentage. You empirically establish what caused the effect. That's where science has its power. That's why people want to hijack it, because your assertion with vernacular of science, when you've got a very strong correlation, well, that's not an established cause.
No, the blood typing grouping isn't the cause of any of the diseases. Now, maybe scientific things you could prove within specifics of how that genome plays out for a specific blood group as to why they may be more susceptible. So there may be scientific ways that you could validate how you could back trace it to only, once again, unscientifically say that statistically this certain blood group is more susceptible to this. Again, there can be science in it, but that in of itself, what you're describing, can't be, because the blood group itself isn't a cause in of itself.
Well, and he's talking about statistical probability also. You're outside the scientific method. You're outside, right away. And then on top of that, statistical probabilities. Probabilities have to do with induction. They have nothing to do with the scientific method at all. Zero.
I think it's definitely an exercise in gathering more data, because IBM and future companies are coming with blockchain want to encourage you to take certain vitamins and certain like, for instance, selenium is a top one that I guess is missing in majority of people's diets, and they equate to changing patterns of behavior through their probability model, basing it on time and your blood type. If you take these certain type of vitamins, you can actually prolong the disease, reverse the disease, or add years to your life. So it's not guaranteed, but this is where they're going with this modeling.
That's another great example of differentiating between correlative studies, which allows you to look at something, form that first step, that level of abductive reasoning, that lends you to then be able to go on and take your coenzymes years, or in the case of what QE cites, vitamin C, the scurvy. It allows you to, that initial vitamin C thing came from the fact that, I don't know, just make a bullshit example up, that abductively somebody noticed that sailors who took an orange with them didn't get scurvy. And that abductiveness allows you to go to that empirical method to validate that thought. Correlational studies are a way in which we can, without immense genius, gather data that you can formulate more logically a more simple abductive reason to go and test. It doesn't mean that any of that is science.
You were detailing this on the last show, and you were saying when you're in the hypothesis construction stage and you guess what you think is going to cause the effect, obviously at some point someone's got to guess right, but it might take studies that narrow down the probability of what might be the cause before you formulate that, which is up until that point only part of your probability, into an actual cause. So in the case of the scurvy example, yeah, you've got men going out to sea. They're subject to being buffeted a lot, and they've got seawater coming at them, and all these different things you can correlate, but they're not necessarily going to give you anything that's even remotely the cause. But at some stage, when you actually get down to the brass tacks of doing the science, you start varying things that you think actually cause it. And you might have got there through a correlative study, but it isn't science. It's not that it's not useful either. And it's only a problem when it's asserted as science, because then it automatically becomes pseudoscience. So all of these mathematical derivations and assumptions that people might make and use to point them in the right direction, perfectly acceptable. Wonderful, in fact. Until you start calling it science when you haven't actually established a cause.
Point.
Yep.
Well, QE, thanks for the presentation, man. Thanks for thanks for allowing me to question time. I find it fascinating, man. Time, the whole discovery of it, the different calendars, how it affects people psychologically, even just knowledge base that comes with different calendars. It's fantastic. So time is pretty awesome construct. Anyway.
Rap is what affects my psychology the most, though.
Rap? Is that what you said, rap? Like,
yeah.
Hey. Listen, be easy. You got two of us in here right now, too, so relax.
Yeah, I noticed. That's why I said it.
Yeah.
I'm on standby.
Exactly.
As this is the final of the 4 presentations on science, it may be, I don't know if you're up for this or not, Quantum Race, it's entirely up to you, it's impromptu. But one of the things that people who regularly tune into you and I will have observed is how the person who opposes us with a scientific claim is challenged on that claim, which is to first establish with them what precisely is the phenomena being studied, i.e. what is the dependent variable that they are going to claim if they are going to make an assertion of science. Now, there is no observed phenomena unless you're actually looking at something happening. That's the first step. What is the phenomena that you're observing? What is your dependent variable? Now, once you've established from your opponent what your dependent variable is, what's the effect that's being studied to establish the cause of, you've already got half the hypothesis. You've got the second half of the dependent variable for your hypothesis. All you need from there, from your opponent who's claiming science, is to establish what they will presumably claim that they've got scientific experimentation for, what they presume, suppose, causes the effect. And that's called the independent variable. Once you've got those 2 pieces of information from your opponent, that would be the essence of science, the effect, and the cause of the effect, and you can actually write it down for them, even if they don't do it off their own back. Which is to say, you say what they have asserted is the cause and what they say is the effect. Now, if you wanted to, you could go on a little bit further and give them the contrapositive, which is the Null Hypothesis. So where they assert if A, then B, if cause, then effect, then in a scientific prediction, that's a hypothesis, you'd also have the opposite of that, which is if A, that which you assume caused the effect, and not B, no effect, in other words. The point being that at the end of the experimentation, that would be the actualization of that process, the experiment stage, testing it, varying the thing you think causes the effect and seeing if it actually causes it, that's when you have validated scientific evidence. Now, that is what they must achieve to claim science. That's our opponents. And you'll watch Quantum Eraser write this down. Now, the reason I've gone through all that is to get to this very specific point. When you're in a challenge or a debate about what is claimed to be science by a globe believer, they will often change them halfway through their explanation. They might substitute what they have said as the effect for the cause, and vice versa. Hence, Quantum Eraser actually writes it down, ties them to what they're claiming is the effect. And the first thing they normally fall at is it actually even a natural phenomena? So in the case of the discussion with Flat Earth Data, what we're discussing isn't naturally occurring phenomena, something happening in nature that's not caused by man. Well, that's a natural phenomena that you're then going to go on to figure out and hopefully guess right and validate with experiment the cause of that effect. That's science. It's really narrow. However, it's empirical, and that's the reason why we've had these 4 shows, because the assertion that goes along with the globe claim is that there's scientific evidence for it. Simple fact of the matter is there isn't, but you need to hopefully pay close attention to these last 4 presentations, go through them again, watch them a couple of times, and get the gist of where to catch people out. Perfect timing. So this is the what's on screen now is the document that the QE will put up for our audiences when a opponent is saying he's got science or she's got science. I don't know if you want to elaborate on what I've just said with it on screen, QE.
No, we witnessed this over almost a 2-year time span, and that's what I noticed ever since I got here from the beginning. What would happen here is they would switch up their independent variables when they had an independent variable. They would switch up in midstream, and then everyone would get confused, and the entire discussion would circle the drain at light speed. So I said, wow, okay, from here on out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write these out, and I'm going to have them, I'm going to try to control the situation and have them write down or say exactly what they mean. And we've witnessed on many of occasions, right, where we'd put the natural observed phenomena and they would change it midstream. Or they would say, because they know what was coming next, a lot of them would know, and they would say, no, that's not the independent variable, that's the dependent variable, and then switch them up. So it would just breed confusion. And I thought that this little scheme right here would not only keep everyone on track, but show the tactics that are employed to try to get around it.
That's it. So for example, we had Fight the Flat Earth on Flat Earth Debate, and he started off by saying redshift was a proof of gravity. I quizzed him. Well, so your dependent variable observed phenomena is redshift. He qualified it, clarified it. I didn't actually write it down. I've got a good enough memory. I've done it enough times, but the effect is far better if you actually write it down and show it to the audience and show it to them as they're saying it. Exactly. Nevertheless, I keep track. And the phenomena claimed was redshift. What's the cause? To prove gravity, I might add. Well, distance, not a cause. And later, it's then asserted that distance causes gravitational attraction. So the dependent variables change from redshift to gravity. And then later, redshift went to be the cause of the effect of gravity, and so on and so forth. So in other words, the independent variable, dependent variable will be changed around once it's highlighted to the person that's trying to claim, in this instance, that they've got a scientific proof of gravity, that if distance, then redshift. So not gravity then, but they'll, the uninitiated, assert this if and then relationship, if distance, then redshift, literally not even a mention of gravity. But they'll claim it's scientific validity, but it's not.
Yeah. Just for the record, I wrote it down.
Hey, did you write it down when he said it?
Yes, I did. And Nathan was like, I don't need to write it down. I have a good memory.
Yeah, once you do it 1,000 times, it's not for our memory, but it's to show the audience the stepping and fetching and the bumbling, fumbling, and stumbling. Because this is, as you can see, this is relatively easy. It's cut and dry. It's logical. It's just a scientific method, right? Up until experiment, because you need this before you head into the experiment. So this is quite easy in the distance one. Number one, distance isn't a viable independent variable to begin with. And like Nathan said, what are you trying to prove here? Gravity or distance? That's priceless. I loved it when I heard it. Yeah, exactly. You got it. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, this just again, I'll reiterate to the audience, it's worth going over these presentations again. And I say that with all the people floating by in the chat, chatting to each other quite happily, because I had heard these presentations with cathexis and I didn't take them in. I wish I'd watched them 2 or 3 times. I didn't. And, they've been now, so they're so concise and to the point, each of these 4 presentations. It is worth listening intently without a chat going so that you can take it all in. And if you've got a good understanding of what is and is not science, you can quickly identify where a bullshit claim of pseudoscience has come when they claim that they've got science, or where they have absolutely no scientific validity. I'm going to make this statement as well. There is absolutely no scientific evidence that we are on a ball, a globe Earth. Not only that, further to that, it is beyond the scope of science.
Yes, sir. It's as simple as that. And like you said, now these BALLBUSTERS presentations, the easy way to find these is to go right into the channel. See, the gold is in the playlist. So I got playlists for you. These particular, the BALLBUSTERS Live, those are in a separate presentation. Don't worry about that because I have all 4 of these presentations in science education. So just go to the science education playlist and you'll find 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And sometimes it's difficult to find out what topics are being discussed. So what I did, hit the description. The gold is in the description. Go to the description, hit it, and I highlight the topics that are discussed in each presentation. What I'm trying to say is go to those playlists. I do that for a reason, to keep it consolidated, keep it concise, and easily to find information. So I hope everyone in fact, I know they're not employing them because 2 people this morning asked me for specific videos on specific topics. And I was like, okay. So I'm enabling it because I did hand them the videos. What I should have done is just said, listen, just go to the playlist, right? That's what I'd like everyone to do. Capiche?
Sounds good, QE.
Nathan, you got your buddy in here. You want a shot at him?
You like?
Now, doesn't he have some information that he needs to give us? I know. I know there's a lot more information he needs to give us from years ago, but this is the most recent one. Don't we need, if I'm not mistaken, something on tides with Einstein's field equations, tides, or is it Polaris? I lost track.
Polaris, yeah.
You don't understand Polaris.
You don't understand Polaris.
Remind. Okay, hold on, everyone. Reminding what you were supposed to get, Rumpus. I don't mind reminding you.
Yeah, remind me.
You told me, personally, it was really easy to acquire this information of the declination from Polaris, moving outwards.
Right, yeah, moving along the line of longitude. Yeah, we all know.
Remember telling me how
I'm mid-sentence there. Yeah, so the angle of Polaris changes by 1 degree every 69 miles, moving along the line of longitude. Yeah.
From Polaris, you told me how easy it would be for me to get that, and I said it's your claim, so go and get it.
Well, okay, I'll ring up lots of people at different latitudes and see what angle the Polaris is. How about that?
So you haven't done it yet.
And what
you haven't got it. You told me how easy it was.
Well,
you challenged me on how easy it was.
Okay, what's the latitude quantum erasers at?
Me, it's your claim.
Yeah, but the reason but the thing is, Nathan, you never accept. Nathan,
really easy.
You never accept the science. You never accept the authority of science.
There is no science.
You haven't provided any, though.
Hold on, Chocolate. He told us, me specifically, how easy this would be to get. And I turned it around based on the fact that it's his claim and said, if it's really easy, as you're telling me, go and get it. It's really easy. Why the hell haven't you got it? It's really easy according to you.
I can go and look it up in some literature and
get the fuck on with it then, you stupid idiot. About. I can go and get it. You said I could go and get it really easily, and based on that, I said go and get it then, and you haven't. Well, it's obviously not really, really easy as you told me it was, you moron. Go and get it.
What do you say? He
just-
could look
he
it
just
up.
asserted science.
He hasn't even looked it up yet, according to what he just said.
He
Yeah,
said we don't
really
accept
easy.
Let
any of the
alone go
science.
get it.
Neil, why are you rumpusing? What do you want?
I couldn't hear him.
Good.
I'm saying
Okay.
he's saying that we don't accept any of the science. So did he not listen to any of this presentation?
No,
And that what he's going to present to us is not science?
you're correct, Neil. No, you're right. Yeah, he didn't listen to the presentation, and you're 100% correct. Yeah.
He didn't also present anything to claim it was fine. He challenged us to go and do it for him, and then we said, "Well, if it's dead easy, go and get it." And he hasn't. So what's he presenting again? Nothing. Right. Okay.
So let's get it right. What he has to present is not calling different people at different latitudes. We're not concerned about that. What you have to get is, and I specifically remember this correctly during the presentation, that you have to get the 90-degree looking up at Polaris. We want 90 degrees. We want the sextant calibration certificate. We want to actually see the 90-degree measurement with it 90 degrees above your head. Wherever you're standing, you don't even know where that is, by the way. Then we're going to need 5 other measurements with the built-in refractometer, because you're forgetting one thing about what that sextant's measuring from. Your refracted horizon.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, horizon.
Yeah, that's a little bit down the line, though. But we need 5 measurements, with 2 of those measurements, one being 90 degrees, where Polaris is 90 degrees above your head. We're going to need the GPS coordinates for that. And then we're going to need at least 1 from the equator. And then you could pick the other 3 measurements from in between there. But they have to be, you have to actually physically do it. No graphs, no models, no phone calls, no wiki. Actually see it.
It's really easy. He told us how easy it was. So it's really easy to get that. Dead easy.
I've been asking that very same question since day one. That was one of the first questions I had, because you were measuring your angle to Polaris, but yet I could not find any information, data from that position looking upward at the North Pole or even the South Pole. There's none of it. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
Why is that?
That's why we asked them for it.
And it's their claim.
Yes.
Well,
all right, Nathan, let's go through.
They like to
go ahead.
They like to ignore the fact that you can see Polaris 1.5 degrees past the equator, right? So there's document, I think, as far as even 25 degrees past the equator as well. But yeah, on astronomy.com, you can see Polaris 1.5 degrees past the equator.
Yeah, that's another topic, but we need to see the like I said, the sextant, the calibration certificate, and actual people making those measurements. Yeah, we're gonna have to have that. I anticipate that it's gonna be a long time, but it's always good to go back to it.
That's one of many. We're going to work our way through the BALLBUSTERS panel, get our final comments. So we'll start with Chocolate, if that's good by you.
Yes. Yep.
Oh man, good to be here. It's a great presentation, and that's pretty much it, man.
Adam, you there? Adam?
Bloody hell!
Adam is ace. I think that's pretty much it. We've used up all of our BALLBUSTERS. There's not very many of us here today. I'll do a shout out to my own show though. So there is brand spanking new Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show going out for a change on the main channel. So it's going out on Nathan Oakley 1980 right now. So it has started. So be here or be sphere. I'll see you all in the live chat. Of course, a massive thank you to Quantum Eraser for today's presentation, which was absolutely epic. This is the final one in this Master of Science presentation. The next BALLBUSTERS will be on logical fallacies. So that's in 2 weeks' time. I will repeat this show on my channel in a week's time. So if you're watching this on the re-up on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, hello from me, and a massive thank you to everyone who joined from the public live stream BALLBUSTERS Discord server. Obviously, a massive thank you to everyone in the live audience for smashing the super chat and all of those good things. Anything you want to add, QE, on your own show?
Yeah, thanks for stealing, because I had that on my. I thought of it. I go, I'm going to announce logical fallacies in 2 weeks. Thanks, man. You got it.
Take no prisoners. No, I'm only joking.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks to all the ballbusters. Thanks to all the guests and the audience members. Like I said, remember, the gold is in the playlist. So if you have a question or a concern, you can still message me. I don't have a big problem with that, and I answer all the messages anyway. But just to make it easy, just go into the playlist, get yourself familiar with running through those, and you can find a lot of answers to your questions quite easily. So thanks for coming, guys. I hope that these 4 blocks of instruction kind of lifted the fog on science. If it didn't, go back and listen to them again. Listen to them as many times as it takes. All right, guys. Thanks. See you in 2 weeks. Logical fallacies. The tools of the trade of the ball tards. Have a good one till then out there. Out.